Perfect. Welcome, everybody. I see people are joining. We will give it 1 or 2 minutes, and then we will start. People joining. Let's go. Wait half a minute more, and then we're going. Okay, I think it's time. Welcome, everybody. My name is Stefan Groß. I'm working for DSO Entity, and together with my colleague from ENTSO-E, Ilaria, we are both the main contact points for the new development on the DSO TSO Technopedia. We are very happy to welcome you today and to introduce you a little bit to what we're working on our next steps. And besides from us too, we have our main speakers for today, Susanna from the Commission, which will do the introduction a little bit, Uroš from ENTSO-E's research I don't get it correctly, from ENTSO-E side, and Madalena, the co-chairs of the joint task force on the digitalization of the energy system. Let's go to the agenda for today. So we will quickly start. This is the agenda for today. We will give first the word to the Commission, setting the scene a little bit, and giving the broad frame for why we are here today, what we are doing. And then we'll give the word to our members, to Uroš and Madalena, introducing a bit the members' perspective on the work. And then for the concrete implementational work, it will be up to the secretariats, in the form of Ilaria and myself, to lead you a little bit to the next steps and the process we defined for the DSO TSO Technopedia for this year, and then potentially or most likely in a reviewed version, refined version in the years to come. So, but then I think to keep it short, let's start with Susanna.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thanks a lot for the kind invitation, both to the DSO Entity and the ENTSO-E, and also for organizing this webinar, which is quite crucial for the work on the Technopedia platform. So I hope that today we will have a good opportunity to exchange with all the stakeholders, and I see that people are still joining, which is good. I would like to quickly guide you through why the Technopedia is so important and so crucial in implementing the Grid Action Plan. So as you are aware, in 2023, the European Commission adopted the Grid Action Plan, because the electricity grids are essential for the energy transition, for ensuring the energy security, for the competitiveness, and to meeting the climate targets. There are significant investments which are needed to modernize and expand grids to meet the challenges related to renewables development, as well as the electrification. And maybe to illustrate in concrete numbers, so in 2024, there was 78 gigawatts in the newly installed wind and solar capacities, which was well, a record level. That those levels were never reached before. And also the heat pump sales hit 3 million units both in 2022 and 2023. And also last year we had a new all-time high of 48% of electricity generation from renewables in the EU. So this was an increase from 41% in 2022. So obviously this all leads to the increasing needs to integrate these sources in the grid, as well as to further grid development. So only last week, we published the action plan for affordable energy, which stressed further the need for electrification of demand up to 40% in 2030. Right now, we stand around 23%. One of the main aims is to lower the dependence on imported fossil fuels. And in this relation, the electrification action plan should be adopted in early 2026 to tackle the remaining challenges related to electrification. And one of these challenges is the insufficient grid capacity. Every year, we face significant costs for managing grid congestion, mainly from redispatching, which reached a peak of 5.2 billion euro in 2022 and could rise to as much as 26 billion euros by 2030. And to overcome this, we need to further build our grids, but also make them smarter, which is precisely one of the aims of the Technopedia. So the wider use of grid enhancing technologies and flexible use of the system could save up to 35% in conventional grid expansion costs. Also, the sufficient grid capacity, the interconnected system, and the smart grids could save us roughly 42 billion euros in fossil fuel imports by 2030 on an annual basis. So the benefits of having the system better interconnected, smarter, more flexible are pretty clear. That's why the grids have a prominent role in the Clean Industrial Deal, the Affordable Energy Action Plan. Also in 2026, we plan to publish the European Grid Package, which should build on the Grid Action Plan. And inter alia should focus on enhancing the distribution grid planning, transmission grid planning, as well as boosting the digitalization and innovation. The latter one is very relevant from Technopedia's point of view. One of the reasons why the Grid Action Plan was adopted already in 2023 was to precisely accelerate the work on uptaking the smart grids, to make the network more efficient, and also to uptake innovative technologies. This is done via various work streams. So just to name a few, we have the work stream on the network tariffs by Acer under the existing mandate given by the electricity regulation and the Grid Action Plan. But we will also have a new proposal on network tariffs as mentioned by the Action Plan on Affordable Energy. Two recent electricity market design revisions also aim at uptaking flexibility in grids and incorporated flexibility into network planning. And of course, we also have the electricity smart grids PCI process. And on top of all of this, there is the Technopedia platform, last but not least. So the Technopedia should basically elaborate more on the technologies which can significantly improve grid capacity and lower the cost of grid expansion. These technologies are commercially available today, but they are often not used due to limited awareness or some regulatory issues. So these technologies can be technologies such as the dynamic line rating, high temperature superconductor cables, STATCOMs, voltage source converters, and others. The aim of the Technopedia should basically be to provide greater visibility on concrete use cases for these technologies, including on the monetized benefits, so which costs and benefits are there for the respective use cases. And it should cover smart grids projects under the PCIs, Horizon Europe or Horizon 2020 projects, other projects which are available, and basically explain how the technologies used in specific locations help to accommodate renewables and new loads, how they increased efficiency, decreased losses, or brought other benefits for the system. As we explained in a grid action plan, the platform should be easily accessible and regularly updated to track the most recent development in electricity grid technologies. And of course, it should be regularly consulted with stakeholders. That's why we also have this webinar today. And the aim is really to spread the knowledge to ensure greater uptake of the technologies and hence smarter, greener, and more efficient grids in Europe. In this relation, we also, as a Commission, aim to continue in further outreach activities, notably with national regulatory authorities. The Copenhagen Forum in the beginning of June 2025, on the 2nd and 3rd June, would be a good occasion to do so, and we all have high expectations on delivering decreed action plans in Copenhagen, including on Technopedia. And to keep my message short, I would like to thanks once again to the ENTSO-E and EU DSO entity for the organization of the meeting, and I look forward for our discussions today.
Thanks a lot, Susanna. It's not getting boring, huh? A lot of work. So let's go to our co-chairs. Uros will do the start, followed by Madalena.
Yes, thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Susanna. Very good start for this webinar, and I really don't see a lot of additional points that I could really stress here, based on the I would say comprehensiveness of Susanna's introduction, and I can only confirm that yes, it's all about the targets of the green transition. We need to build and be smarter, and of course, it's all about this uptake of smart technologies, of technologies which I call also advanced technologies, advanced solutions. It's helping the smart grid PCIs be smarter. It's helping on different levels. I think it's actually a very strong link, and probably this was also the reason why it was picked up by the European Commission and different stakeholders, because we see that some links between the vendors and the utilities needs to be established, and sometimes the language that we use in different platforms can get very complex, when we talk about the processes like digitalization, or when we talk about smart grid KPIs, or any platform you can imagine, can get very, I would say, complicated, in particular from the vendor side. Vendors like to see real stuff, real solutions. So if you want to scale, we need to talk about solutions, technologies, and this is really the place where Technopedia can help a lot. And I also see it personally that it can serve a very practical purpose. It can help us see the use cases. It can help us also share this implementation experience. I like to stress that the solution really needs to be seen as something which can be taken from the box and put into the real system. But sometimes the move of how we implement this stuff into the real system can be quite complicated, and it shouldn't be underestimated that we don't need only innovative solutions, but we also need this kind of innovative way of how we bring these innovative technologies into the existing system, because we don't want just to have these technologies in our system. We want them to perform in the way of bringing these capacities, and sometimes it looks very simple, but probably this was the main reason in ISDIM, and will probably in the future be the main reason why don't we have more of such technologies operating for us, because we really need to bring them to create this additional value, social benefits, and all that stuff. So in this case, I see the Technopedia not only as a technical and practical tool, I also see it as something where, because of the element of scaling and all this added value which can be created, it can be seen as a strategic, but also as a political tool, because it can bring people together. It can also bring the TSOs and DSOs together, like we see now this exercise. This is a perfect example. But now going back a little bit also to my community, we also see the Technopedia from utility side as a means to express our needs of the future. Sometimes, and this is also why we don't talk only about mature and high TRL, technology readiness level, uh, Pedia, yeah. So it's not just the base of ready to be plugged technologies. It's sometimes also a base to move into a bit less mature technologies, because the needs are coming from that side, and these needs can be very technological, or could be more going into the way of flexibility or any other developments. I would say that I have discussed a lot with the vendors about Technopedia, and I see that a very important element of it is the recognition. The recognition, because sometimes vendors are really striving, to get recognized, either their technology or some kind of bundle of technologies coming from different vendors, and I really appreciate that it was recognized positively from the vendor side in this direction. So yeah, all good for now. It was picked up properly. I think Technopedia has a great future, but today I really want to share all the current activities, and I would like to learn more about where we are and where we're going. So I stop here.
Thanks, Uroš. That's ENTSO-E's perspective. Let's go to the DSO side. Madalena, please.
Thank you, Stefan, and thank you also, Susanna and Uroš. I want to pick up from something that Uroš has mentioned, and it is related to the fact that we see DSOs and TSOs working together for this. And I think that this is really important, because indeed DSOs and TSOs have a lot to learn from each other. TSOs have since long played this central role in the energy policy, but we now see that DSOs are now becoming more on the spotlight, and this is also really good to see. We are assuming more responsibilities and more roles. So indeed, tools like Technopedia can be really useful in the implementation of these new roles. And indeed, I consider that the development of this platform is timely and it is relevant, and this has been evidenced, for example, through the European Parliament on Initiative report that an initial version was circulated last week, emphasizing here the growing need for grid enhancing technologies, innovative technologies to complement the necessary grid investments. And this is all really relevant for TSOs and for DSOs, especially because we can collaborate with other stakeholders, technology providers, as Uroš mentioned thoroughly, and with TSOs, which are, of course, in a different stage of digital maturity as well. We need to consider that DSOs have different needs and different specificities than TSOs. For example, the level of observability is different, especially when we talk about the low voltage level, and even when we are comparing different DSOs. So the digital maturity of DSOs can also vary, and they will have also different needs. And this really emphasizes the importance of establishing this Technopedia that includes different technologies, different use cases that would provide insights to DSO, so they can identify what technologies are best to really increase the efficiencies and to effectively manage the network. I think that this is especially important for smaller DSOs, so they can have access to the best practices that are already being implemented, and they gain more knowledge through this kind of initiative. So in the end, Technopedia is really about sharing best practices. But of course, we need to see that there is a need to establish a framework that supports the implementation of these best practices. Uroš mentioned that as well, but it is really important that a solid regulatory framework is established to support this. For example, allowing cost recovery for the implementation of these solutions, and of course, regulatory certainty is really important. I will finalize my introduction here, just mentioning that Technopedia is indeed a valuable tool, and it is a valuable tool to really raise awareness, to hopefully increase the uptake of these grid enhancing technologies. Thank you.
Thanks, Magdalena. So all good now. I think scope is defined. Then we can skip my presentational part now. Now we go to the next slide, and I will introduce you a little bit further to the scope. I think it was largely addressed and outlined by the previous speakers already. We all know that Technopedia is coming from the action point 7 from the Grid Action Plan, and it's outlines a little bit the ideas of the Commission. And end of last year, or the second half of last year, we spent a lot of time discussing internally, also between ENTSO-E and DSO Entity, how we can live up to these expectations and what is really beneficial. We looked in existing solutions, not only in what ENTSO-E used to do with their Technopedia, but also on solutions or approaches by other associations, and really try to find the gaps, basically what is missing, and where do we want to go actually with this, what is really beneficial in the future, not only for the system operators, but for all stakeholders involved in the energy transition, and focused on grids, of course. And the underlying point is really this joint approach, this collaborative approach on a knowledge sharing platform, which somehow has a collaborative approach. And we have to see how this will develop. I think that's the way is the actual, the process is a little bit the goal there. We want to collaborate. We have to see how to make it work so that it is acceptable for everybody. But we are really much looking forward to engage on this topic. Main point, of course, will be that for the first time, the Technopedia will also dedicatedly address the perspective of the distribution side. So that's a little bit a new side, mainly. But it's a major point for us, of course. But it will, in the end, will be the system operator platform, jointly with the support of interested stakeholders, to engage in this exercise, basically, which Susanna correctly pointed out will be an ongoing topic for the years to come. So we will have a first iteration this year. We will learn from the experience, and we will do it better next year again. So step by step. Let's see what we already did. So 2024, next slide, Austin. Yeah, next slide. Last year, like I said, we discussed a lot and planned and made our mind, and it ended up in the publication of our concept note in December, which outlined a little bit our ideas and the rough timeline, very rough timeline for this first year. And now we are actually going into the implementation. So that's what Ilaria, myself, and some colleagues from us are heavily working on right now, and trying to really make it comprehensive and understandable for everybody. This includes for us having, of course, some kind of web presence, website, where we will host jointly in the future Technopedia. Jointly, in this case, means DSO Entity and ENTSO-E. With the opportunity for stakeholders to make their voice here, basically. And to have a clear set of understanding what is the expectations, the roles, and the responsible of every party here. We are trying to draft a comprehensive list of guidelines, to be very transparent on the process, and to make it manageable. I think it is fair that we will define at the beginning a little bit how many technologies and use cases and so on we can process, because we are a little bit worried that we get a lot of feedback and then we cannot uplift to review them and have a good quality of the actual results. So we will try to shape this a little bit and keep it manageable, the amount of work. But like I said, this would be a start, and then we will work on it and elaborate it and make it bigger. And I think it would be a beautiful thing in the future. So how will this website look in the future? Let's go to the next slide. So basically, that's the rough idea. We will have a website where we will list different technologies in a format. So we will give the template, which we will define, which can change if necessary. But for now, that's what we propose. We will have a template for the generic technology description. This is a high-level description of specific technologies, like they were listed in the Grid Action Plan, for example. And then, as supportive or addition to the actual generic description of the technologies, we will have the chance to provide more detailed use cases, which are actually examples where this technology is utilized somewhere in the grid specifically. And there we will distinguish a little bit between use cases for the TSOs and for the TSOs to a little bit shape the focus for our members or for the system operators where technology is utilized appropriately. So that's the rough picture for how it will look on the website in the future, which would end my part of the presentation. And I would give over to Ilaria, which will introduce us to the process which we will foresee for this year.
Yeah, thank you, Stefan. Austin, we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, just to highlight how the process will work, because as Stefan already mentioned, this new version of Technopedia will be open to stakeholders' applications. So the first step is, of course, on us to define and publish the application guidelines, the templates, and the technology list to guide the application submission from external stakeholders. And actually, the application submission of external stakeholder will be our first input from external sources to then proceed with the next step. After the application submission, all the applications from external stakeholders will be reviewed, and it's very important to mention that first of all, the application from external stakeholders will not be the only source of the input, because we need to maintain a system operator's point of view on the platform. So system operators, our members from both of associations, will also have the chance of contributing to the content. After the application, all applications are submitted from externals and also from our internal system operators. There will be a application review and approval of the content submitted. I will explain how the process will work and how it's actually split in different steps. So the review process will be split in 2 steps plus approval, and we will go through it in one of the next slides. After the approval of the content, of course, we will proceed with publication, which is our end goal. And this publication on the DSO TSO Technopedia website will be also be supported by other public webinars, as well as the content would be promoted in conferences such as, for example, the Copenhagen Forum, as Susanna was mentioning at the beginning. As Stefan already mentioned several times, this is the goal is to have ongoing process which goes beyond 2025 and which aims at making Technopedia always like improving in terms of process, in terms of content. So we will value very much the feedback that we will receive throughout the process and after publication by external stakeholders. And this is actually the aim of today's webinar and also the aim of future webinars that we will have. Austin, we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you very much. So just to give an overview before we jump in the process, an overview of the supporting documentation for the applications. So we mentioned that there will be an submission window. So a window for applications will be open, and during this submission window on the website, DSO, TSO, Technopedia website, this material, the following material that I'm mentioning, will be published on the website. So we aim at having a process, application process, which is guided and for which stakeholders have all the information needed in order to make the applications fit for purpose. And for this goal, we will publish application guidelines explaining the steps of the process, a technology list, because we want to let's say focus the applications on technologies which are considered relevant from the system operator's point of view, and which are considered to provide benefits to the grid in terms of network efficiency and in terms of, in general, the functioning of the grid, as it was mentioned before by my colleagues. For this aim, as we will indeed have a first screening of technologies, and we will publish a list of technologies for which we would like to receive application. There will be an application form where with a detailed template in order to guide the applicants in the content that is needed, as well as, for example, the number of words and all relevant information needed to make, again, the applications fit for purpose. And lastly, of course, timeline is very important, because there will be a submission window which will be open for some months, but we aim at having one cycle per year, meaning that this submission window will close, and I will present the timeline later. Yeah, so this submission window will close and will allow the two associations, so DSO Entity and ENTSO-E, to review all the content received in the second half of the year. Next slide, please. Okay, to jump then to the first part of the process. After the submission window is open, and when all content which guides the applications and the process will be published on the DSO, TSO Technopedia website, there will be a specific submission window, as I was mentioning, which will be open from April to August for 2025. However, let's say that the timeline might change for future years. So we know about application submission window for 2025, but as we were mentioning, we aim at making this process more efficient, and thus also timeline might change for future years. So whatever you see here in terms of months and timing is only referred to this year. The applications, of course, will be, as mentioned, will be possible to submit the applications on the DSO, TSO Technopedia website, because there will be the link to the specific application form, and this application form, as I previously mentioned, will be reflecting the template for the technologies, descriptions, and use cases. and all the applications that will respect this template, and the submission form will be considered by the two associations. In order to make this process as efficient as possible, together with DSO Entity, we're designing some criteria, application criteria, and here we listed the most relevant ones. So first of all, as I was already mentioned, the aim of this new DSO TSO Technopedia is to also reflect the perspective of the industry. However, the focus and the relevance of the technologies and the use cases has to be assessed from a system operator point of view. So what we would like, one of the first criteria that we actually introduced to make sure that, let's say, there is no work wasted on either side, is to have applications that are submitted on use cases jointly by stakeholders, so anyone in the industry, plus together jointly with a system operator. This is a first screening to ensure that indeed there is a use case of the technology in the grid, and to make sure that the system operator's perspective relevance is already let's say introduced in the application at an early stage. Applications should only be concern the technologies which are in scope. As I mentioned before, we will publish a technology list, and we will only consider applications which are dealing with content on these technologies. Also, applications should be concerning use cases of the technology and not subcomponents of such technology. Obviously, application should follow the templates which are provided. This is very easy in the sense of just, let's say, following the submission form, and this is why we will introduce a submission form that is already guiding the stakeholders with some with detailed information on what is needed and what is expected. And then one last point here is that what is mandatory is that the application describes the use cases. However, the information on the general information on the technology, and we will see the submission form later, the template, so it will become more clear. But let's say that the generic information about the technology can be provided, but is not mandatory. This is because the generic description of the technology in the end will be reviewed and drafted by the two associations and our experts, because in any case, it will have the scope of giving an overview of the technology without focusing on specific cases. As Stefan already introduced before, on the website, there will be a first part on the generic technology, and then followed by use cases. We want this first part on the technology, description of the technology, to be overarching and not to focus on just specific cases. This is why, of course, if such information, generic information, is provided by externals. It's always good input. However, we cannot guarantee that such description will be then published, because we want to make it as general and comprehensive as possible to cover all the use cases. Next slide, please, Austin. Thank you very much. So as I was saying before, the application review process and approval is divided in 3 phases. So there will be a first phase, first screening phase, when applications will be, the content of the applications will not be reviewed per se, but it will be just assessed that all the criteria are complied with, that the application, so the format has been followed, that the applications are coming during the right time window, that the application has been submitted on in-scope technologies, and that a stakeholder plus a system operator are actually contributing to this application. Just something to be clear with, because I know it can be confusing. When I mention application, I mean whatever content is submitted by the externals, while if I talk about the let's say application of the technology in the grid, I'm referring to use cases, to not to create confusions. So by application, I mean just the submission of the content from the externals. After this first screening is carried out, so after the compliance with all the criteria and guidelines provided is verified, we pass to the second step, which is the content review of the application submitted. In this case, as I was mentioning before, we need to distinguish between whatever is submitted in terms of general information on the technology, and instead from what is submitted in terms of use cases. So whatever is submitted in terms of generic description will be reviewed together by DSO and DSO Entity and ENTSO-E experts, while use cases which deal with which are relevant for DSOs will only be reviewed by DSO entity, and use cases which are relevant for TSOs will only be reviewed by ENTSO-E. In this step, we will verify the relevance and the impact of the use cases for system operators. We will make sure that as Susanna was mentioning, that the benefits are actually measured, quantified, and are objective benefits for the system. So we will exclude whatever is presented for commercial purposes only, without having a clear, let's say, a clear statement on the benefits for the systems. And in any case, all use cases will be assessed from the system operator's point of view to ensure that such use cases are actually relevant for the grid, and that are can contribute to the efficiency of the network. During this phase, and while going through the content, in case there is need for substantial changes to such content, of course, we will might propose a draft. However, However, we will not publish something which is different from what was submitted by stakeholders without first contacting such stakeholders and agreeing on the changes together. After at the end of this review step, and after substantial changes are agreed with the stakeholder that submitted the application, if needed, there will be a last process, which is a last step of the process, I'm sorry, which is the approval of the content. And the approval of the content will be, again, for the general description made by both association jointly by the designated bodies of both the association, while for use cases will be approved by, again, the designated body. But if we're talking about TSO use cases, it will be ENTSO-E, while if we're talking about DSO use cases, it will be done by DSO entity. Austin, we can go to the next slide. Following approval, of course, there will be it will be time for publication, and all material that has been approved will be published, as mentioned, on this new TSO Technopedia website. The launch of the content in the website will also be accompanied by a webinar to present the content to stakeholders, as well as, again, another source of feedback. And lastly, in general, throughout 2025, before publication and also after publications in the following years, the progress of Technopedia will be shared in relevant external events, such as the Copenhagen Forum, as we already mentioned. Next slide, please. After, let's say, now we talked about the process, and we described all the steps of the process. However, we would like to also give a bit of more context, let's say, on how the submission form will look like, and how the content will look like on the website. For this scope here, we included here the draft of the application form. As you can see, in the application form, there are included specific categories describing what should be, let's say, provided in each of these in each of the categories sections, as well as also a maximum number of wording, or, for example, a drop-down list. This has the scope, as I was mentioning before, of actually driving the applicants through the process, and to ensure that content is fit for purpose. The application form here is one. However, as you can see on the left side of the screen, we have a first part, which is just the information of the submitting party, and this is, of course, not optional, because we need to make sure to have the contact point in case of any question from our side. But then the second section is focusing on a generic technology template. The generic technology template, as I was mentioning before, is optional, because it's providing, it would provide us with an overview of the technology itself. However, as mentioned, the final content of this generic description is on the association, as it has to be as comprehensive as possible for all use cases. while on the right side of the screen, we see use cases template, and this is what's the core part and what's not optional, because here it's actually the space where to provide information on the use case of the technology by external stakeholders and system operators. Just to jump quickly, I will not go through all the sections for a matter of timing, but just to jump quickly to the results section. Here we can see that there should be a focus on measured, calculated, or estimated data that are related to the performance of the use case of the technology. And this is very relevant and will be something which is, as I explained before, which is also let's say then making us decide whether the use case can be published is comprehensive or not. A last part that I would like to quickly focus on is also the confidentiality declaration. So we are aware that we will be dealing with content which is coming from external sources, and for this reason, when submitting, we will be asking the applicant to agree with the two associations to review, work on the content, and publish the content on the final Technopedia website. If the applicant doesn't agree with this confidentiality declaration, of course, then we will not be able to proceed with with publishing the content on the website. So this is a very relevant part. Next slide, Austin, please. Here we have an example of StatCom technology, which again, please note that we have this example. However, there is still ongoing discussion between the two associations on which technology to be included in the first edition of Technopedia. So this is just for a matter of, let's say, being a bit more practical and showing how the website might look like with information. However, we are not committing to including the StatCom technology in the first version of Technopedia. Here we can see that actually the first part until TSO use cases, which is on the right bottom part of the screen, is regarding generic information and TRL. I would like to specify that TRL will be included, let's say, included in most in the first part, in the generic information part, as it will be giving again an overview of the status of the technologies. However, in each use case, we will also have consideration of the maturity of that specific case of the technology, and it will be possible to provide it through the application form. However, other than this, what we would like to focus here is that we're expecting to have specific use cases. In this case, we have TSO's use cases, but will be DSO's use cases with specific information on such examples, because this is very like the core part of the content expected from externals. Next slide, please. just I'm about to conclude, and just to give an overview of what we're working on. And as mentioned at the beginning, I mean, the scope of this webinar is to actually receive feedback on the work done until now, but we wanted to have this webinar before launching the Technopedia, in order to make sure that we can incorporate relevant feedback from all of you. So before jumping to the timeline, I would like to stress again that this is something that Technopedia, at the whole process guidelines and website, is something that we're finalizing. So now we're working on the selection of the technology. So the list of technologies to be published in this first edition of Technopedia. We're working on developing the website where all the relevant information to guide the applications will be included. And we're working on themselves, the approval processes, the review bodies, the guidelines to be shared on such website. As well as we're also working with our legal sections on especially on data ownership. So what I mentioned before, to ensure that we will include all confidentiality, let's say, considerations, and that we will make we will work effectively on the data protection as well as accessibility of the content. Next slide, please. To jump to the timeline. In December last year, there was a concept note published on Technopedia, which is linked in the presentation that we will share afterwards. And what we're doing now is since December until now, we work on advancing in the implementation of the website as well as of the guidelines. But today we're here to gather feedback in order to have time to implement this feedback before April, when there will be the launch of the website as well as the opening of the first submission window. As already mentioned, the first submission window will be open until August 2025. And after the closure of this window, there will be, of course, the whole application review process that we described before, in order to lead us to the approval of relevant and compliant content to be ready for publication in December 2025. And with this, I would actually close, I think, my intervention, and I would leave the floor to Stefan for the question and answer session. So feel free to write in the chat any question, feedback that you have for us. And in case you have feedback that you would like to share afterwards, we will share our emails to make sure that you know who to contact.
Thanks, Ilaria. And let's give you a break of the comprehensive summary, and I will take over for the Q&A now. And the first two questions are quite easy because Ilaria already answered. Of course, we will share the recording and the slides afterwards. So I think that's clear. Let me check the first question. So if you have a question, please feel free to use the Q&A tool from Zoom, and then we will go through this points one by one. Madeleine and Ulrich already had to leave, unfortunately, but I think for the technical questions, Ilaria and I are anyway the better people to answer them. So let's go there. So the question is, let's start with the first one, which we have already. Hello all. Will there be a kind of initial categorization of technologies available during submission, which could later support search engines, for example, IT/OT solutions like platform versus asset related, like new types of materials? That's a good question. We had a long discussion in the categorization, and I think because it was already quite a complex one, we decided actually by limiting anyway the submittable technologies, or technologies which we will focus on this year, to a small number from DSO side and from TSO side, that we will not go into this categorization point yet. That is something which we have to work on in the time to come. So I think that's, I hope this answers the question. It is definitely something which needs to be done later on when we have more content on the website, but in the first iteration, we decided against it, just out of to reduce the complexity and get it started, which we considered more important than having a perfect solution from the beginning. So thanks for this question. It was mentioned, but next one, answering. Whoop. It was mentioned by me that you are looking at what other associations are doing and filling in the gaps. So given that there is a considerable overlap with what another association has already done, at least on the DSO side, is your intent to make that association's work largely obsolete or duplicative? I don't know who asked this question because it's anonymous. We looked in solution, like I said, we looked in what other association or even companies were doing, and we consider that this is not satisfying what or how we understand the tasks coming from the Commission, especially on this collaborative approach, and also partially on the quality of presented or how the presentation was done by the technologies, the categorization. So yeah, I don't know. I don't want to judge on the work of other associations. That's not up to me. We have to do this work anyway because it's a mandate from the Commission, and DSO Entity and ENTSO-E have to follow what we are told, basically. Not as bad as I've phrased it now, but a little bit it goes in this direction. So we have to work on this. I think there is no competition between the association. If another association has a different perspective on working or formulating something on a similar field, I mean, they're free to do so. And I see there actually a benefit in having a larger diversity of solutions than, which is still limited. Now we are a small sector. We know all each other. I know half of the names which are in this webinar today. So I think there is no competition there. It's just maybe different perspectives of this on a similar topic. So I think that should be good. Ilaria, you jump in if you want to say something on the questions, right? So that I'm not monologuing too much, but this was specifically addressed for the DSO side. Let's go to the next one. If the purpose of the Technopedia is sharing new technologies with system operators, it feels difficult to require a system operator to already be involved. Will non-European DSOs count for this requirement? That's an interesting question. Let me explain you a little bit our concern. And maybe this is not such a valid concern anymore. We are also in the development of discussions and pros and cons and try to assess how things will be. And our first approach was, when we say everybody can submit us with some kind of solution they think valid for some kind of solution for the system operators, then we were wondering, okay, we will get hundreds of small startups trying to sell us their solution of some wonder energy box. and we have no clue what they're doing. And we were thinking, okay, we have to limit our we have to limit the focus, or we have to focus our intention to actually concrete feasible solutions, which we actually can also review. Now, Ilaria and I cannot review all kind of technology. I have no idea of half the technologies listed in the action plan. So we have to find internally our experts and from our member base, and they have to allocate the resources for this. So that's why we limit a little bit the focus to the technology we want to apply, and this safeguarding us that the application should be done jointly was coming from not overloading us. Ilaria, what do you think about it?
I think it was also coming from the fact that in the EU reduction plan, it's explicitly stated that we should focus on commercially available technology. So if we're talking about a commercially available technology, it should be the case that it has already, there are some use cases of it in the grid. Of course, as Uroš mentioned at the beginning, there might also be on top of this scope provided in the EU reduction plan also the intention of including technologies for which that are not yet at latest stage of the technology readiness level, but for which there is research and development still needed. But in such case, we are aiming more at pilot projects, and usually, again, pilot projects are also including system operators. So this is a criterion that we designed to ensure actually that we do not receive use cases for technologies that are very early stage. I'm talking about technology readiness level of 1, 2, 3, 4, because the scope here is to have use cases benefit quantified. So it's and as also Stefan was mentioning, it is not to be let's say just a commercial platform, but rather is to focus on use cases happening in the grid and which are beneficial for the network. So for very early stage research and development processes, I would say that this is not really the scope of our let's say Technopedia, at least for the moment. Then there might be evolution in the future, but this criterion has been designed for the scope that we have for Technopedia for 2020-25, and so it has been decided with a purpose.
Perfect. I think that's already addressing a little bit the next question. That's actually, I think, a short one, which is the question about, can you please provide more information on the use cases? Can these be desktop studies, or do they need to be deployed projects? I think Ilaria made this very clear. It needs to be a deployed project, basically, cannot just be a paper study. So that needs to be some kind of real-world implementation. And I think also from the technologies which we initially will choose, this will be relatively clear. The next one is a big one. It's also focusing the DSO side. And it's going very much into the remuneration scheme of DSOs. I think that's not the right topic for here, because we will not touch remuneration topics. We will focus on the concrete technology problem and the problems we are addressing with some kind of challenge we're facing in the grids with a specific technology. So addressing topics of CAPEX, OPEX, and the remuneration of DSOs we have to see. I'm not sure if 8% average utilization of the DSO grid, that's potentially true throughout Europe, but there are definitely cases where we have not 8% utilization of the DSO grid only. But yeah, if you want to discuss, I don't know who asked this question, but if you want to discuss this in detail, I would appreciate to reach out to us, to me in this case, bilaterally. Next one, the most urgent action that the DSO, a lot of DSOs questions, I seem to be in interest here. The most urgent action that the DSOs needs to take is to elaborate its technical knowledge to a level comparable to that of the TSO. How can Technopedia be used to reduce this knowledge gap? I'm not sure if I agree completely, because it's a little bit, how is this formulated in English correctly? That sounds like as DSOs would be living in the woods and would not know what technologies are available there. I'm not sure if I'm going with this to a full degree. I know very small DSOs which are very innovative and have a very high level of digitalization in their grids. I also know other cases. I find generic statements about the DSO world quite difficult in general. But yeah, definitely there are, it is, I think it's a difficult, more complex topic for the DSOs. And I think we have to acknowledge this also from the policymaker and the commission side. I know Susanna does it, but not everybody. It is the TSO, and I'm sorry to say this stuff, the TSO world is relatively easy. I mean, you can basically go to the TSO grid map on the ENTSO-E website and count all nodes still. You know how many substations you have. In the DSO grid, the grid is the complexity is way higher. And DSO grids are also much more diverse by nature. So solutions which work in one grid don't necessarily work in another grid, just because they are fundamentally differently. I agree that there's some, especially in digitalization, there are some things which need to be done on a larger scale. For some of some DSOs, maybe the majority of them, but overall there is already a lot of work done. But Susanna, if you want to say something, feel free to take it away.
Thank you, Stefan. Thanks a lot. Yeah, maybe just to reflect on what you've already mentioned. Indeed, there are different DSOs across Europe. There is a great variety. So also the level of I wouldn't say technical knowledge, but rather the technologies they use, they differ a lot. But this is precisely the aim of the Technopedia, basically to share the experience, to have several use cases per technology, to show that some actually can overlap even between DSOs and TSOs on a high voltage level. Some can be actually used in countries in which they were not used before. That's why we also should have the monetized benefits there. So actually the smaller DSOs or the regulatory authorities, which are an important part of the picture, can go to the website, they can check what's being done, if this is something that would be beneficial for them. That's why we also want to continue in these further outreach activities.
Yeah, completely agree. Okay, I think we answered this question. There's still some. Next one. You mentioned that only technologies falling under certain defined categories will be considered for this year's edition. Shouldn't you be considering all existing technologies a live pilot with the potential of increased grid capacity, efficiency, reduced cost, and not join certain categories which are already well known? But that would be the perfect world, but we just don't have the capacity and the expertise. If we want to go quality first over quantity, and we want to understand what we publish on our website, we have to have the right expertise identified within our member base. And I know I understand this may be frustrating for some players and stakeholders, but we have to start slow steps. That's just how it is for now. Next one. Will Technopedia cover all existing technologies in use on the grid for decades, such as transformers, traditional cables, overhead lines, SF6 breakers, etc.? That's an interesting on newer technologies. We had a discussion on how to call it innovative technologies, and we decided not to call it innovative technologies or some topics. I find this, I think it's difficult for me now to quantify what is a newer technology and an older one. I can tell you that we on the DSO side, we're working on a technology template for the SF6 free breakers and substations and so on, and switchgear. And so that was something we were investigating. We have to see it. It will be mostly driven by our member base and the focus from our members on which technologies are most interesting to see in the first iteration of the Technopedia. Good. And so then we come to the last one. Wow. And was that coming? Given that the existing Technopedia is out of date and now some entries over 3 years old and innovation is changing fast, waiting until the end of this year for an update will mean that 4 years without an update. Okay, that's for Ilaria to answer.
Yeah, I was already raising my hand. Indeed, actually, we at ENTSO-E, we have been working for an update of our version of Technopedia, and we will publish an update in the coming months. But this has not to be, let's say, confused with what we're presenting today. The aim is to following now we will publish an update on ENTSO-E Technopedia. However, the long-term plan is to only have one version of Technopedia for the future. So for this year, we will have the ENTSO-E Technopedia published because it has been it's work that we have been doing for in parallel even before and it was foreseen even before the EU Grid Action Plan was published. So we continued with that work. However, the long-term goal is to have only one version of Technopedia with space dedicated only to TSO's technologies, space dedicated only to DSO's technologies, and space dedicated to technologies that can be applied on both voltage levels. So yeah, to answer to your question, we're working on update on the current version of Technopedia, but please bear in mind that the end goal is to have just one version of Technopedia, which is what we presented today as DSO TSO Technopedia.
Exactly, perfect. Yeah. I think the next one is very easy. The action plan highlights that the issue they are trying to address is that commercial technologies that can greatly improve the functioning of the electricity grid are readily available but not sufficiently used. So it sounds like the Technopedia should focus on these technologies and not include items like PSD, etc. Yes. You want to add something, Ilaria? No, perfect. The next one. Will a map be provided in the Technopedia of which TSO TSOs are using the technologies in the Technopedia, and also an update list so that progress can be tracked to see the technologies that are considered mature? For example, TL79 are being utilized by system operators and so investigated by technologies that are not being used. This bill helps suppliers to adapt their technologies to meet needs. This is a very interesting feedback, I have to say. We don't think that we will add a map for now. That's not planned. I think it's a great idea. But it will be not happening until April. But it's something to consider. I think where this question goes a little bit in the direction is how to keep things updated. I think what is important to say, we will have now a first version, an initial summary of the content, but we want to keep the material up to date in the future. So latest the next year, we'll have revision of the material already on the Technopedia to provide additional, to keep the information up to date. And potentially also further mechanism to really engage on more in a community approach, finding interested parties and stakeholders on one technologies. But that's all for the future, basically. We are not there yet. But I like the map idea. That's something we should keep in mind. But we're not there yet. Okay, there's one question saying that's the supporting idea of the map. I agree. Already identified this as a good solution. And then we are coming back. I think that's the same speaker from before, or the same question. When by the end of 2025, there are 2 publicly available products for stakeholders regarding grid technologies that, at least on the DSO side, are not exactly the same, but have considerable overlap, won't that be confusing for external stakeholders? What might be done to deal with this? I can already name you now at least 3 overlapping publication on technologies addressing the DSO world. I don't know how to answer this. I think, again, all associations, all stakeholders are free to raise their voice. I think that's part of why we are here. There are, of course, potentially we have the same information in different formats presented on different sites, but this is how things are. And for me, that's not a bad thing necessarily. And then it's up to the stakeholders. We have all to handle the information overflow in a way. We, again, DSO Entity and ENTSO-E have to do this work thanks to the Commission. We think that we will go a little bit a different way from at least the solution we investigated. And so we have points which we think are key selling points for what we want to do, if you want to make it comparable in a way, but I don't see here any competition with what we are doing or other associations or stakeholders are doing here. But I'm happy to discuss this also offline if somebody wants to not speak out loud here. Good, I think that was the last one, which is actually good. We would have 7 more minutes. But this shows nicely we were well planned, went through all our material and had enough time to answer all questions. So I think, Ilaria, Susanna, are you happy?
Yeah, I would say that Susanna, if you, I saw you muted yourself if you want to say something, and then Stefan and I will conclude.
Thanks a lot, Ilaria. Thanks a lot to everyone who raised their voice and asked questions, because this is really important also for us to see where the stakeholders actually are going, what are their questions, what are their concerns, also for our future work. So for me, this is perfectly fine. Thanks a lot for organizing it once again, and thanks a lot for raising all the questions.
Ilaria, go first.
Yeah. Great. Thank you also from my side. As mentioned before, in case you have further feedback, do not hesitate to contact us via email. Our email will be shared through the presentations and with all the material from today. So feel free to always reach out to us. And it was, I think, like, it was good to see the questions engagement from all of you, and this is useful for us to understand which direction we should be going. Then all I have to say is we will come back with then further information on when launching the submission window in April. And yeah, in the meantime, feel free to reach out in case of other comments.
Thanks, Ilaria. I just think, thank you. I think I had a good time. It was interesting questions, good feedback, and let's keep in touch. And thanks for our technician in the back who changed the slides so nicely. So see you all. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.